This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by Magic Pork, our honored Patreon member and Switch Knight.
Hi everybody, I'm KC.
And I'm JV.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Nintendo Switch Obtruder.
A shout out to Dr. Fact, who is indeed pausing at this very moment.
That's right. No, he didn't hear that. He probably didn't hear that because he always pauses right after the word.
Yeah, I kind of dig it. He updates us whenever he listens to the podcast and always pauses at the end of your special word, KC.
And just...
And saves the podcast for his commute home. It's kind of hilarious.
It's really good. You know, it's funny because that little thing goes way back to the WTPT days, actually. With the Pokemon podcast. That was like Joey's thing was he always did a different, like, another fastidious episode of, or another monarchical episode of the Palette Tribune. Yeah, and it's just kind of ingrained in my planning now.
It's a tradition. We might as well embrace it. And everyone has their own traditions, So.
Well, we're actually breaking tradition tonight, though, JV. I mean, we're recording about an hour earlier than we normally are because you're doing something that I believe is officially an ungodly hour.
Yes. So, I am going to be flying over to Gen Con in Indianapolis, my first time in Indianapolis. But I am literally going to be flying from the recording of this podcast in 3 hours. 3 hours. I have a 3-hour turnover.
So your plane leaves at like 4 a.m.?
Okay, so my plane leaves at 5 a.m.
Okay.
It's not a super reliable airline, so I have to make sure I'm there at least an hour or an hour and a half before.
Oh, yeah. No, always makes sense to do that.
So I have to be at the airport at around 3:30 a.m. It's not going to be fun. And considering how late we normally record, practically going to have zero amount of sleep.
Look, I know what it's like. A lot of my vacations, I leave at similarly early, flights. It's better because it's less crowded. It's easier to get there because I usually just take a Uber there or something like that. And you get there earlier, right? You get to your destination earlier and you still have the day. And if you're the kind of person who can fall asleep on that plane.
Yeah, it helps. It definitely helps. And I that's kind of why I went for an early flight because Gen Con is happening on the day that I'm flying in. So I'm essentially going straight from the airport, renting a car, driving directly to the convention center, and I still have my whole day ahead of me. But that's the problem if we're recording late at night like we always do. There's gonna be no time for me to sleep outside of the plane itself.
No, I get you. So it's good. But this actually worked out for me because I always prefer to do this as early as possible. I'm always here just waiting for JV to show up so we can do this show.
Yeah, I know.
But you're an hour different, and you also work a little later than
usual, than most people. Yeah, that's right. It's crazy just how consistent we've been, considering our schedules.
It is kind of a miracle, and I still have a couple of vacations coming up in the future that I'm really hoping don't overlap with whatever your next convention is.
Yeah, my next convention is PAX West, so hopefully that's something to consider.
Yes, also, I did want to note to people, we were going to schedule the Switch Topics recording. My original planned date that I was tinkering with was going to be this weekend, August 4th, but I'm holding off because I definitely want to make sure JV gets in on that, right?
Absolutely, thank you.
So right now, my tentative recording date, and I will post on the Patreon with this now, is going to be August 18th. That's when I want to record that, and we'll try to edit it and get it up by the week after. But I'll post on the Patreon now that I kind of have at least a date. But if something comes up, JV, and you're like, oh, no, that's the weekend I'm going surfing in Maui or something like that, you got to let me know. Because I want to do that. I don't want you to miss out on this one.
Yeah, this one's a pretty big deal. And I feel like we might be in a position to maybe fight some of our listeners or debate against them in some ways. Who knows?
Ooh, debate? What kind of things do you want to debate about a a analysis of the story and the game.
Especially the ending of Xenoblade Chronicles is a little bit contested. The opinions can be a little contested. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, we'll see. I do want to remind everybody, though, who listens to this show, wherever you listen to it, you can give us a big boost by giving us a review on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, wherever you listen. You can drop a review, and if you subscribe to us on YouTube, it doesn't mean you can't still go on Apple Podcasts and leave us a review there, or go on Stitcher, or wherever you can go to leave us a review. That would really be appreciated, guys, and help us out, because that gives us higher on the algorithms and where we get shown and featured, and we just want to be seen by more people, so more people can listen and join the community, and then they come play games with you, and it's just this whole, what's the opposite of a vicious cycle? A peaceful cycle?
It's a
beautiful cycle?
A beautiful cycle, a benevolent cycle, a glorious cycle.
I like that, glorious cycle. It's a glorious cycle. If you could leave a review and help us find more people to join in and make everybody enjoy this better, that would be great. Let's just go straight into the game time. We have a lot of games to talk about this week. We have a lot of news, including some new products that are coming out. Plus, Nintendo did come out with their financials, and I know that's not like exciting stuff, but there are actually some very interesting and pretty cool things to go over that they revealed this week. And of course, we have the Community Pulse, and we're going to read your responses to this week's question, which was regarding the duration that updates are released on games over the time. So we can hear what everyone has to say about that. So, all right, so let's go into the game time.
Let's do it.
All right, game time. Time for the fun. Before we actually talk about it, you actually played Paladins also this week, correct?
Oh yeah, I played Paladins pretty... Well, I wouldn't say it's a lot, but I played a decent amount, and I actually invested quite a bit of time and energy into pulling some characters that I really like.
What the heck? Well, let's kick off with that, since that's our good little joint topic this week. So Paladins came out, though, about a month ago, I want to say, but it had
with the Founders Pack.
Yeah, with the Founders Pack, which was... it was basically early access if you were willing to pay for a bunch of the, in-app purchases, so to speak, in the game there. But now it's totally free to play, and I downloaded it. Are you playing free to play, or did you buy into it at all?
All right, so I was pretty sure I was going to stick to free to play on this game. The problem was I saw a skin that I just needed to dump money for it. I just had to.
All right. Tell people what the game is and what it's about, and then tell us what the skin was that was so attractive to you.
All right, so Paladins is in a genre called a hero shooter, where unlike in other more standard FPSs where everyone has the same essential body and they pick up weapons and shoot each other, in hero shooters, you select a character, and that character has different abilities and different shooting styles that make them unique to other heroes that you can pick.
There is a lot of similarities between this and how a MOBA works, really. It kind of feels like a MOBA in a FPS playstyle.
Hero shooters are very much pulling from that MOBA experience, where there's a character, they have a specific set of abilities, they might have special mechanics that make them different, but each character is such a unique element that it's really part of what gives these hero shooters the appeal.
So yeah, it's not like everyone's just playing soldier with maybe a different loadout of weapons, and some of those games do give you a little bit of skills. This is completely different abilities. Just to give some examples, the characters I was playing as when I picked this up, the first one was, he was that ice wizard guy. He has like he does a little bit of healing. He does this one move. He basically does like a Darth Vader force choke where he can grab people and have them float in the air, and he can kind of just hold them there while he does damage from afar.
Are you talking about Genos?
Genos, yes, Genos.
Genos.
Yes, that's the first character I picked up, and he's pretty cool. And then he also has his ultimate attack where he charges up, and then he kind of just does this big AoE around him that damages enemies, heals allies. Pretty cool support character. He was the first one I used. But then to contrast that, the next character I tried out was the mecha riding goblin.
that was actually the first one I picked up.
Was it Ruckus or
Ruckus?
Yeah, Ruckus. And he was cool because he has the Gatling gun that has it picks up speed when you hit fire. It's just kind of like and then it's like, yeah, then after it picks up speed, it really starts dealing damage. So that's just by itself a very different mechanic from other characters, but he also has the rockets he can shoot every so often. He can bring up a force field if he's in dire need of one, and he also can go into, I barely can move mode, but I now have 2 more Gatling guns, and I'm just kind of unloading a flurry of bombs and missiles in a single direction. So that's pretty much the tank character that I got to try out. So very different play style. One was a tank, the other's more of a supporter, and there are, I don't know, how many characters are in that game already?
Well, let's see.
There's at least, I'd say, 30, 40?
38
Ooh, all right. I was in there. Yeah, so 38 characters right now. And that says, and the model right now is, so when I was playing it, I think there were maybe 6 characters I was allowed to pick. But I'm assuming you can just pay and permanently unlock
all of them.
Oh, okay, yeah. But you can unlock one at a time, or you just have to pay to unlock all of them?
You can unlock one at a time using the in-game resources, but you can also pay a lump sum to unlock all the characters total.
Okay, all right. So which is the character that you saw that you wanted more than any other to get this special skin for?
So, naturally, I gravitated towards the character you described, Ruckus.
Okay.
He's a little goblin.
It's a she. She.
Oh, she.
Yeah.
Progressive.
I know.
She's a goblin that rides on a mech, which is the style that I like. But I noticed in the skin list, there's this champion called Fernando. And his typical skin is kind of a, like a Spanish... he's a Spanish knight. And he's very suave and, like a playboy type character. But one of his skins is called the FN01 Helios, and it is a direct reference to Gundam.
I knew it was going to be a Gundam. I knew it was going to be
Yes! Did you just see that coming?
Oh, no, a mile away.
Absolutely.
At first I thought it was going to be a mecha version of Ruckus's mecha, but it's another character, so that threw me a little curveball.
Yes, it's Gundam. It is absolutely a Gundam skin, and that is my number 1 character that I play now. It even uses voice lines that harken back to the original Gundam anime. So I just had to. I had to, Casey.
That's cool. Now, how much did that cost you to get that skin?
Now, I do have to say, some of the skins are tied specifically to loot boxes, so it was an unknown amount that I had to plug in to get that skin that I really wanted. I was lucky in that I got the skin early on, but I could see someone pumping a lot more money than they should to get this skin.
Now, wait, so you can get skins for any character, though, including ones that you don't have access to?
At this point, I purchased the pack that lets you unlock all of the characters just so I can just play a little bit of each of them and have an understanding of it for the podcast.
Okay.
But
how much was that by itself?
I believe it was about $30 or $40.
Okay, to unlock all the characters.
Yeah, which is around slightly cheaper than base price for Overwatch, which is the comparable game.
Right.
The most comparable game to this. It was a little bit hefty, and then I had to pay a bit more for the skin. So ultimately, you get what you pay for, in a sense that you have a set amount of characters that rotate and unlock for you. Mm-hmm. And as you play, you get more of the resources to slowly unlock champions. But if you want all of them immediately, you can pay this lump sum, and then you can pay a little bit extra to get skins or to get loot boxes to unlock skins. That's their primary monetization system. They also use this battle pass situation that is kind of
like Fortnite, right?
Yeah, it was kind of inspired by Fortnite, where there are battle pass related skins where you can continuously play the game, and that increases your battle pass level. And from there, as you progress that battle pass level, you unlock more and more cosmetics from there.
And you increase your battle pass by doing certain missions every day, like play this mode twice or win this many times in deathmatch, maybe use a tank character X number of times, that kind of thing. They'll, just stuff that to encourage you to try different things, and as you do it, you get these points that will, level up your pass for the month. So yeah, though that's pretty cool there. It's a big price to unlock everything, but I guess, comparing it to, it doesn't feel like when you're playing it, it doesn't feel like I'm playing a free-to-play game. So I can totally abide by if someone said like you did, paying $30, $40, whatever it was, to unlock all the characters, it totally feels like a game that is worth that, right? And then I think that you're also kind of getting the added benefit, even if you're a pay player, you're still getting the benefit of it being free to play, because that fact alone guarantees that there's going to be a very robust player base to constantly engage with, even if you're even if you're paying for stuff. There's going to be lots of people who are just going to try to grind out the free stuff as long as they can, and so that's a pretty decent deal. And I felt like I was definitely enjoying the characters that were there. I kind of am excited to see the next rotation of characters, and I might try out some others. I'm not crazy about the loot boxes being the way to get the skins, though. Like,
it's not for all of them, but there are some loot box exclusive skins that you have to get through that system.
But if I want, but there are certain ones that I can just be like, that's what I want. I want to buy that skin.
Yeah, some of them you can't, some of them you can.
Okay,
all right. The Gundam one you can't, but a lot of the others you can.
And the loot boxes can only be bought with real money, or was that like either or, real or in-game cash?
I think the loot boxes are only in-game cash. Or only real world cash.
Let's use the official terms. Hard currency and soft currency. Hard currency being only purchasable with cash. Soft currency is money you can earn through in-game play.
Right. I believe the loot boxes are hard currency only.
Okay. That makes sense. That's it.
But there are a couple that you can use your soft currency for. Like, I believe it's gold.
Okay.
So ultimately, it really depends. Each chest has its own set of skins that are available if you open them. And that can be a bit of a touchy subject for people. But as long as they're specifically just cosmetics, ultimately the gameplay isn't affected by this.
Okay.
So it really depends on your feelings on that topic.
No, yeah. I mean, for everyone, that's a very personal issue. All right, so let's talk about what the game is like itself and the gameplay. And I'll lead off as someone who came into this totally fresh-faced, never having played this genre before of the hero FPS. So it has a lot of the same structure as an FPS. You will anyone who played Fortnite already will be familiar with the system of, like, you can join a queue. The queue will put you into certain game modes depending on which ones you want to or not want to play. And if you have friends that you want to play with, you can group up with them and you'll be put on a team together. When the queue has room for you. The different game modes right now. There was basic deathmatch. My team of 5, 6. I think it's team of 5.
Team of 5.
Yeah, 5v5. So my team of 5 versus that team of 5. Whoever kills more of the opponents at the end of the time limit wins. And there's different maps for this as well. Then there was the control point mode where you have to get somebody of your team into a certain zone. Claim the zone for your team, and then the longer you hold it, the more points you rack up, and then you're trying to get to a certain point threshold to win. And what was the third mode?
And then there's the siege mode.
Siege mode. Okay, what's the siege mode?
Right. The siege mode is essentially control points that turn into a payload map.
Ah, okay. And what's that mean when you say a payload map?
So you essentially go in, with your team, you try to control a point in the center of the map, and if you succeed, that point turns into a payload, where you, as your team, have to escort that payload to the opponent's side.
So it's like a truck or whatever?
Yeah, it's a truck or a cart or something like that. It's essentially something you stand adjacent to as it moves forward, and you're trying to defend that position towards the opponent.
Okay, and get it to whatever end goal.
Right, and that you get points for capturing the point, the control point, and you get points for succeeding in pushing that payload forward.
Okay, so these are all pretty standard modes for the genre, yes?
Yeah, it's very standard modes.
The maps, I got the impression, now tell me if this is something that's different from the others of the genre. I just got the feeling that the maps, at least the ones I played on, were relatively tight, kind of small. I didn't feel like there was a lot of places to go. But are these normal size maps for this genre?
I have to say that the maps do feel a little smaller than other games of the genre. There are some maps that are bigger, that are a little bit bigger, but overall, it definitely felt smaller in general. I can agree with that.
Okay. Though they did pack in, I felt, a decent amount of little tunnels that you can learn about, vantage points you can get on to, get the drop on the enemy. There was definitely advantages to be gained for knowing the map and knowing, where to take position and such like that. But, and I like the aesthetics of them. Again, nothing too flashy.
The maps never really stood out to me in this game. Mm-hmm. They were kind of a practical aspect of an FPS game or a shooter game that, you have to work through.
I guess you could call them competently done. Not phenomenally done, but competently done.
Yeah, I think they're competently done in general. None of the settings really blew me away, or I was like, oh wow, this place is really cool. Oh, I like the way this map is designed. I think it has a few alternating paths to some maps. There are a few points that would centralize the action, but not necessarily anything that I would say is really special.
Okay, yeah, sounds about right there. All right. Is there any other aspect? What about the characters themselves now? The uniqueness of their play styles? Do they feel really different? Do you think they are missing anything really game-changing about them, or do you think they have a pretty good spread of abilities?
The spread of abilities is pretty cool, though ultimately none of them are incredibly unique. In fact, some of the characters in this game have almost one-to-one equivalents to Overwatch. And that's, when it comes to a hero shooter genre, and even the MOBA genre, there's going to be a lot of overlap of characters because there's only going to be a certain amount of skills that this shooting formula can really employ. Like, there's a shield character, there's a draining character, there's a healing character, there's a mecha character that shoots in a very similar way. So there's a lot of overlap, but again, the characters are competently done in my opinion.
Now, here's my thing. I want to ask if games like Overwatch do this that much, but when I play the MOBAs, right, the thing I look for in characters, and the thing that I feel a lot of these games are a little reluctant to do, is make something that's really out of bounds for a character. Something that threatens to almost feel broken or really like a risky design, rather than this character does 10% more damage in this situation, or this character, heals 10% faster when, the clock is in an odd number, or things like that, things that are just very simple like that. A lot of games, I think, play it safe. Whereas, let's say a MOBA like Heroes of the Storm did a lot of characters that had very, just
dynamic and really game-breaking situations.
Potentially game-breaking situations, just things that are, unique, like the guy who can lay an egg where he can respawn if he's ever killed, and then the opponents have to know to hunt for his egg, right? That Murloc guy, right? Things like that. Or or the guy who can fly around the map and just see everything by scouting around the map freely. Right. I like those kind of powers, even though they're very hard to balance. Are those things more common in this genre, or is that something that they kind of stay away from?
There are, but I feel like in this game, the abilities are mostly pretty safe. Mm-hmm. You have flashy attacks, you have chokes, and you have crowd control abilities, and you have some different damage types and different ranges that people attack better in. And they're all interesting in their own way, and they are flavored by the character's personality, which is always pretty fun. But I didn't necessarily find any incredibly groundbreaking or mold-breaking moves.
I mean, that's a really tall order. I understand why they don't do it, but that's, that's like one of those things that really appeals to me. Even if they underpower it, as long as I feel like I'm doing something broken sometimes, that's usually enough to enchant me with a game.
I do have to say, when it comes to something like Overwatch, it does feel like some of the characters feel a bit more dynamic and different, like what you're looking for in that game. Mm-hmm. In this one, it does feel like sometimes it feels like there's a bit of a check mark in or a checklist where they're thinking, we need this type of character, we need this type of character, we need this type of character. Oh, let's fulfill that by throwing these abilities together. I
will say when you're just saying like this type of character, I did feel like a lot of the character in this game felt like I am somewhat generic person dude. Just guy with gun or girl with sword, or even though some of them even look like they have a decent amount of detail on them, I don't feel like any of them really speak to me as like, oh, this is an awesome dude. I want to learn more about the background story. So with that in mind, and being someone who's played a lot of games in this genre, where do you think this fits in the pantheon of the hero FPS games? Is it something that you think will make its mark on the Switch? Do you think it'll hold its own even compared to the others? Or do you think it's, all right, it's a good free-to-play game, but if anyone brings over anything else, this game might go to the wayside?
So I do like this game, and I like the differences that it has from another game like Overwatch. It has, a persistent character that you can actually tweak its stats or tweak different properties of it in game, as opposed to Overwatch where you don't have any stats within the game and you just swap out characters on the fly. I do like that aspect of it. I like that there's a mount that you can use to bring in and move back to the position where you previously died.
Oh, right. I do like that. That yes, you when you respawn in certain modes, you start on a horse or you can obviously, you'll get other skins for different things to ride.
And I want to give this game a lot of credit in that it does understand what the genre, what is out there in the genre, and it tries to do its own thing, with the way the game plays inside, or with the way the game progresses when you're in the game itself. Mm. So there is direct progression as you play through the rounds of this game that's pretty unique and different.
Now, what do you mean, though? Like the progression? Like, you just mean like how your character advances in what ways?
Yeah, so as you play through a round of the game and you can do better and you get kills and you complete the objective, you get a certain amount of points that you can allocate to a menu that gives your champions different stat bonuses.
Like perks?
Yeah, different perks. So if you want to, let's say, start focusing on lowering your cooldowns of your abilities, you can spend that on that ability, and then as you get more money or more resources in the game, you can expand that even further and essentially level up that perk as you progress through that round.
Oh, and that's something that's not really prevalent in the other games of this genre.
Yeah, it's non-existent in Overwatch. Really.
Oh, okay, all right, so that's interesting. That's something I didn't realize was unique to this.
Yes, and there's also a card system or a deck system where you can upgrade and tweak the stats of a character's individual moves or abilities. So if you want to focus the character on the flamethrower instead of the fireball, you can choose the cards that in your character deck that would let you upgrade that stat.
Okay, so there's ways to customize your playstyle a little bit.
Right, exactly. And that's very unique to this game, and I can see why people might like that appeal over other games that don't have that level of persistence.
Oh, I like that a lot.
It's unique, so it's a good way to differentiate this game from something like Overwatch.
Okay. Oh.
But I do have to say, and I don't want to sound so negative on this game, because I actually do like it. I like the game. I like the fact that the characters are, in a way, customizable. The fundamental gameplay of it is enjoyable when you're out there shooting at each other, throwing down your abilities. It's a fun time. What makes it really especially special is that it is on the Switch.
Okay.
None of the other games of the genre are on the Switch. So Paladins is the undeniable victor in the platform that we talk to. Or the platform that we talk about.
Right. Now, the only thing I'll say that holds this back for me, right, is the fact that there's no offline mode. There's no way to enjoy this without being online. And that's not uncommon. Like games like Fortnite is the same way. I would like it if this game gave me just some mode to practice with the characters that are available. Like, I don't like going into an online match with a character I haven't tried before, and now I have to kind of learn how they work on the fly. I would like just to be able to say, all right, I'm going to go and tinker against some bots, or just give me a training room with some dummies to shoot and practice my abilities on, just to kind of get up to speed. And maybe I could do that on my ride home from work. And then as soon as I'm, able to play online, I don't feel like my first game is a throwaway match where I'm just kind of weigh everyone down. I can feel like I know what this guy does, I know what his perks are, and I'm going to be a valuable member of the team right out the gate.
Right. I do think there is a training mode that's available, but I don't think it's available offline on the Switch. So,
yeah. So bottom line, though, good game for the Switch, but maybe if something better came along in the genre, you might not stick with it.
Right. Especially as someone who has played this genre quite a bit, and especially played quite a bit of Overwatch. A lot of the elements of this game seem really not quite as polished as a game like that.
Okay.
The animations don't feel as polished. The soundtrack doesn't seem as inspiring. The character animations look a little bit stiffer. And even when you're on the mount, the movement is so rigid in how you can only go like forward, left, right. And it doesn't, the control scheme for that doesn't feel quite as fluid.
But guys, if you want to play with me, I will be playing this definitely online. Chai Tea Lady, thank you for the games you joined me on last night. I am definitely going to be playing this. I'll be in the Discord chat if anyone wants to join me, or figure out the next time we could all join in a group, because it's definitely fun to play with people you know.
Also, special thanks to Darkus for being awesome and playing with me a couple times.
Very cool. All right, JV, why don't we keep it going with you here, and why don't you tell us about your time this week with your other mecha love interest and MegaMan X Collection.
That's good, Casey. That's good. So I did also pick up MegaMan X Legacy Collections 1 and 2. I'm gonna kind of go over just what MegaMan X is a little bit. It's a pretty old game, so a lot of you out there probably know what it is. And MegaMan X Legacy Collections are just a re-release of the entire franchise.
Who is this Mega Man guy? Is he some sort of Smurf guy with a gun hand?
Yes, that is... No, I'm not going to go into that crazy. You all know who Mega Man is to some degree, and if not, then let me know and I will explain in rigid, very explicit detail in a Discord chat. But if you don't know what Mega Man is, it's a robot that shoots things and kills other evil robots. Boom. Mega Man X, what was cool about Mega Man X is that it kind of made the series a little bit more adult. It had a couple darker themes, and it added different ways to upgrade your character beyond just getting the power-ups from killing bosses. Mm-hmm. You got power-ups, you got armor upgrades, you got sub-tanks, heart tanks, you have more movement options in wall jumps and dashes. Mm-hmm. And so, your Mega Man X has a lot more progression options as you play through the game. Now, I'm going to talk about Mega Man X Legacy Collection specifically, and I absolutely love that the Mega Man X gameplay is timeless. It really is. Picking up the game now, then over picking up the game many years ago, it feels just as good to me as it once did. There's a reason why people love the Mega Man X games, and there's just a charm that and fluidity that's timeless. That you're always going to enjoy this game picking it up. The music is obviously quite well captured. It's the classic soundtrack. That was perfect. Wow. I love it. But yeah, the music is so crisp and clear that it was emulated quite well, and it's Mega Man X. If you liked the music back then, it's captured well. Surprisingly, some remake collection or re-release collections do get that wrong. Sometimes there's weird compression problems with the music, but that's not a problem.
Yeah. I always loved how fast Mega Man X feels movement-wise. You mentioned he has like things like the dash and he has the wall jumps. I always feel like I'm moving along quickly. There's no like just dead space on a stage where I'm just like walking, through a relatively
really slow.
Yeah, right. I'm always on my. If there's enemies there, I'm either dashing, I'm jumping, there's always something coming rather fast down there. And it just adds the energy level to this game.
And I gotta say, KC, the dash was not built into Mega Man X. It was built into Mega Man X2 and forward. But I totally forgot that you didn't have that ability to start with in Mega Man X, the first one.
Interesting.
And when I picked it up again, I was like, wait, what? Why can't I dash? Why? And then
the buster, like you can charge up the shots?
Yeah, you can charge up the buster and you can do the wall jump.
Okay.
Like normal. But that dash is missing, and it kind of got me a bit.
Okay.
Because I was so used to that dash being there. But once you get it, it's
the thing I forgot was how Zero isn't a playable character until I think X2, maybe X3.
Yeah, and in X3 he becomes a full-fledged character that you can actually
and I always like that because when you play through with X as the melee character, not as Zero, I mean, I kept saying it.
As the melee character.
Yeah, as the Zero's the melee character. When he beats the Robot Masters, he always just got like special attacks, not really like their weapon. He just got like, now he could do a Shoryuken basically with his sword, or he can do a spin attack, things like that,
But that's just one way to make the Zero character different from X. Even personality-wise, X is the one that absorbs their ability and adapts in that way, while Zero just gets better and hones his own skills.
Right.
Which is cool. Now, in the Legacy Collection, there are some pretty cool and standard features. There's different display modes, like, having the standard square with letterbox sides of Mega Man art. You can have a more compact square so that the dimensions of the pixels look crisper, but it's a smaller screen. And then there's a stretched widescreen that looks gross, but fills your screen if you have a widescreen TV.
How do the animated scenes look on there?
They look good. they weren't updated really in any way, but some of them are really silly. But I
remember really liking some of the cutscenes, especially in Maverick Hunter X. That one went really pretty far into a storyline and had like the longest amount of anime cutscenes. Like you could just probably sit and watch. I think they even had like a 15-minute like anime episode in the last version I played of that, like on Vita, that you could just watch, and it was like a solid anime all on its own just to set up the game.
Yeah, and the storyline is actually a bit deeper than you'd expect, but you don't necessarily go into this game for the storyline.
I do.
I do. Yeah.
Sigma. I think Sigma's a great. He's a great villain. Character. I think I love Zero's backstory. That like.
Yeah, I love how he's a hero, but he has some anti-hero elements to him, which is pretty cool.
I love the idea though, like that, like X and Zero are both like the last creations of Dr. Light and Dr. Wily. Like that, Dr. Wily still has his like legacy in this game, though. It's like not this horrible monster. Like Zero's actually, also a pretty solid bro.
Yeah, it's just really cool, and I have missed these games for quite a bit. Now, what I did find to be a little weird was that the default graphical setting had this weird smoothened edge effect that made everything look super blurry, and I did not like that.
Interesting.
So I switched it back to the standard pixels of the classic art style, and that felt good. There's also a graphical setting where you can set up scan lines on your screen, so it would look like a classic CRT TV. And that was pretty neat.
Do they have the rewind feature in this?
No, they don't. It's not. They really didn't touch the gameplay of this.
Okay, because I just remember that was the thing in the MegaMan collection that I last played. It had that feature where you could always hit the L button and just rewind time, so you could like redo any mistakes that you made. And I was like, it's kind of awesome, but at the same time, it's like I don't feel like I'm playing the same game anymore.
Well, I don't think they could get away with a rewind feature because of just all the varied movement capabilities and power-ups and attacks that are in X compared to the base Mega Man game.
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't really want to touch that based on balance problems. I'm not sure. But what they did add was what's called a museum mode, which contains a lot of arts assets of all the previous games, and there is a lot of content there, which I thought was pretty
They always
cool.
throw that stuff in, yeah. I mean, it's kind of cool to look through. If you own it, sometimes it's the kind of game you're going to play a lot of. It's sometimes worth going through a little memory lane with that stuff. But yeah. But what I'm always interested in these special editions are there any like special modes or challenges or like score chases to take on?
So, yeah, absolutely. There's the real meat of this game outside of replaying the classic games is called the X Challenge.
Okay.
The X Challenge.
That sounds like something on Spike TV.
Yeah, right? So, it is essentially a boss rush mode, but it is a set of missions that you go through where you have to fight two Maverick bosses in the same stage.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so what's really cool about this is that you get 3 stages inside of inside of a challenge with a pair of Maverick bosses in each stage. So you can have 2 in one stage, then 2 in the next stage, then 2 in the last stage. The coolest part is that at the start of each challenge, you can choose from 3 power-ups that you would like to take on this challenge. So what's interesting is that you can see which bosses you're going to run into,
right, and
then select the power-ups that you want to bring to most efficiently take on those Mavericks.
Now, is this like ridiculously hard?
It's really difficult, Casey. It was a lot more difficult than I expected, and it can get pretty chaotic, but I loved it.
Okay, that's cool. I like that. It has a lot of different options for challenge, too, with the mixes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, anyway, is it always bosses from the same game, or do they mix bosses from different games?
They mix bosses from different games.
That's insane!
Which is what makes it so cool. And what's cool is that within a set of those 3 stages, your lives, your health, and your weapon energy persist. So if you take damage in the first stage with these 2, then those consequences pass on to the next one, and you have to really conserve and figure out what you have to do. And there's a lot of strategy involved in figuring this out, because while you can kind of know which weapon is good against certain bosses, that's not going to necessarily be good against the second boss of that same stage.
Right.
So you can hit the weakness of one, but you have to also space and maneuver against the second one. So the enemies sometimes work in different ways, and you have to move around and you have to really figure out your game plan and then execute it. And I love that. And this is just such a cool system, and it kicks my butt so much.
That sounds like it could be a standalone game on its right there.
Yeah. So the MegaMan X Legacy Collection 1 and 2 bundle is actually $40. For a single one, it looks to be $20. And I think I think it's worth it. You get 4 games in each collection, from Collection 1 and Collection 2, that are totally solid on their own. I would pay $5 for each of these easy.
Awesome.
But adding the X challenge really adds so much value to this game, and it kind of makes me not necessarily have to worry about a game like 20XX. Mm-hmm. It kind of takes that roguelike element of 20XX while using the MegaMan X bosses that are so interesting and unique in their own way. I dig it a lot.
Very cool. That's the thing. They always have to add that one little something to these that makes them worth it. Like, really worth it, because the games are always worth it on their own to play, but to really make people get excited about a re-release of a game like this, I think they need that one extra mode, and sometimes they don't really go to that extra length. That sounds like that, they went the extra step here to bring X into the Switch world.
Right. I gotta say, X Challenge kicks your butt quite a bit. And I've known a lot of people who bump the difficulty down to easy just so that they can kind of learn the patterns of all the bosses and then take it up to the normal difficulty and then execute from there. It's a hard challenge, and I think it's worth it.
All right.
Before we close out this review though, I do have to make note, whenever you buy the physical bundle of Legacy Collection 1 and 2, it is split up into physical and digital versions. And some people might not like that split. A lot of people claim that MegaMan X Legacy Collections 1 and 2 should be able to fit into one cartridge. And if you don't like disconnecting the two, one physical, one digital, then that's a concern that you might have.
Very cool.
I don't know if you could tell, but I'm a Mega Man fan.
No, Mega Man's great. I mean, anyone who's not a Mega Man fan is a monster. It's a monster.
Monster, I tell you.
And monsters just happen to be the basis of the next game I want to talk about tonight.
Oh, I love it.
Hello Neighbor. Hello Neighbor.
So is that a Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood type game? Is it fun and, teaching you about lessons of life and being friendly to each other?
There's some life lessons to be had in here. But no, Hello Neighbor is kind of an interesting concept in that it's almost, I want to call it a family-friendly horror game.
Oh, it's a horror game.
It kind of
right.
is. It is definitely a physics-based 3D exploration game at its heart, where the premise is you're this little boy who witnesses something very bad happening in his neighbor's house. It looks like, you don't see what happens, but it kind of looks like the neighbor, wrestling with someone, or it looks like he may have just killed somebody, right? And then he locks his basement door, and you being a pernicious little snoop, you want to break into this guy's house, find the key, and get into the basement to see what he has hidden there. Then there's other chapters that follow thereafter after you accomplish that task. But there's a bit of a story to uncover here. But the main gameplay is walking around in this 3D mode, trying to avoid the neighbor himself, who they kind of tout the game as having this special AI that learns from the way you act and isn't just some dumb, predictable monster that you can easily just distract by throwing something against the wall and then running the other way, and easily just after a while you don't become afraid of them. In this game, there's at least the theory is that he'll learn, and that you can't really do the same trick on him
over and over.
Right. And I also think it's kind of a clever twist to make a game where the monster, so to speak, is this clean-cut dude. He's just a normal man. In fact, he's kind of looks like a very productive member of society. He's very well-groomed. He kind of reminds me of Ron Swanson from, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec. Yeah, absolutely.
Like that. But he does give you this... I do find myself rather scared of him, especially when you're snooping around or when you're breaking in someplace. When he catches sight of you, I do catch myself getting a little, a heartbeat going.
Startled?
Yeah, and it's startling. your character, you feel like your character is nervous, and you could sometimes hide, and you have to really maneuver your way and find your way through this guy's house and all the different places. And it also kind of follows that the Five Nights at Freddy's style of storytelling, where there's a lot of stuff hidden in the background and the environment that if you pay attention to, you might be able to put together the story. Like say, oh, I see this thing on the wall. Maybe this is something to do with his past, and maybe this is what happened. And as you get caught, which you probably will, the game just kind of resets you quickly back to the starting position, and you get to keep any items that you maybe found along the way. They don't like strip away things from you.
So there is a persistent element to the game that lasts between game playthroughs.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Like once you've unlocked a certain door, that door's unlocked, so you don't have to like find the same keys over and over every time. And as you get caught, sometimes randomly you'll get to see a little cutscene, and there'll be a cutscene that's either a flashback or just some sort of like dream sequence that might tell you a little bit more about the backstory of what's going on here. And it does it all without any language. There's no words. It's kind of a nice, artfully little done thing there. But sadly, the game does not function on any gameplay level as I feel it's intended. All these ideas, I can see where the developers were going with it. I can see that it's really cool to run in and you hide in a closet, and then maybe he runs past you, and then like you figured out how to like do this little puzzle to get the key and they get here. But the game is like, I have no other word for it, that it's like janky. There's bugs in the first 5 minutes of the game. Not even in the first minute I started playing this game. I was just exploring around some houses, but the first thing I saw is when I went behind a house was a big circle that said Unreal script missing. And
wow,
yeah,
what?
It was just this weird space of nothingness. And then when I touched it with my character, I fell through the floor, the screen glitched out, and it just put me in the beginning of the first cutscene, and the game went on.
Wow.
Several times items would like fly through walls. Sometimes the neighbor would get trapped in weird places that he just couldn't escape from, and he just became a non-threat anymore. And I was just free to do whatever I want because he's like stuck behind a bed or something like that. One time he somehow got launched. I don't know what he did, but the neighbor somehow got launched into a room that was locked, that was the basis of me trying to like find out how to enter. But somehow he got like glitched into it, and since I guess he's always free to open any doors he wants, he just kind of opened the door for me so that he eventually caught me, right? But because he opened that door, it was now always open, and I was free to get the key without solving the puzzles because somehow he glitched into a room he shouldn't have been in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a total mess.
It's a real mess with the physics, and sometimes you want a little tension, or you sometimes you just want like a minute to do something and focus on a puzzle and think about it and whatever. But he eventually, I don't know if this is part of his AI learning, but eventually he just runs around everywhere all the time in almost like a giant nonstop patrol that I can't do anything without him like seeing me, and then I have to run around the house for like a minute to lose him. Even if I go hide someplace, he just runs back and forth in front of my hiding space for like 5 minutes, and then if I ever step out of it, he's like he's just running around so much. There's no way for me to do anything without him just seeing me, chasing me, and it's like I don't have time to like observe and figure out the puzzles or think about anything. He's always it's a very small space you're usually in. It's just for several of the stages you're just around his house, and there's just not a ton of places that you're not in line of sight. And if he's always running around, and sometimes he just jumps through windows because he feels like it, nothing gets done, and I just get frustrated because some of these puzzles need time to like think, and they're not like obvious what you need to do. I need to like stand up, say, all right, I want to look at this, and maybe if I go there or I jump here, I can get to that. Oh, no, wait, he saw me. I have to go run around the house for a minute now to lose him. And it just gets very tiresome after a while.
Is there at least any sort of payoff at the end? Were you able to get through?
I got through the whole game actually. I kind of got really tired halfway through, and I felt it was like just very obtuse, and I felt like all the puzzles I was solving were for nothing. Like I felt like I did a lot of work just to. It wasn't even like to get an item I needed. I did all these little like puzzles to find a key to open a door that just became a shortcut to make it easier to navigate around the house. And I'm like, well, I don't need that. I just want to know what I'm trying to do. I don't even know what I'm trying to do at a certain point, or how I need to like, solve a certain area. And all I do is I run around and chase, hide, and whatever. In fact, the one time he got stuck behind the bed was probably my favorite time in the game, because I actually was able free to roam around and just focus on the puzzles for a little while without being interrupted. And the game also includes a friendly mode, right? There's like a friendly neighbor mode where supposedly they make him slower and they make him less thinky, where he can places less traps and stuff.
Okay.
But it didn't do anything. Honestly, he still ran just as fast. I still always had to worry about him. He just still was this... He just became an annoyance rather than this thing I'm supposed to fear.
Something that... Yeah, right. It becomes more of a bothersome thing to deal with instead of a character that you're actually afraid of. It's not really a looming presence, more of an annoying
that's
presence.
the thing. If he went away for a little while, he could be a looming fear. He could be a thing like, wait, I haven't seen him in like 5 minutes. Where is he? Uh-oh. And then like, all right, let me focus on this puzzle. But now when I walk around the house, maybe I could be afraid of what's behind this door. But no, he's just always there. He is never gone. And I just got very sick of him, and I wanted to quit. The story's not bad. Like I said, I pieced together. It's not super obtuse. It's not like... Honestly, I hate the Five Nights at Freddy's games, and I think that they're kind of like lousy in the way they tell their story and stuff. And
oh yeah, I remember when the first one came out and they started revealing some of the more the nuanced storytelling. I thought that was pretty cool. I remember you liked that aspect of the first game.
I thought that was a fine idea. There was good storytelling, but then it just got to the point where I was like, okay, you're doing the same thing over and over, and you're just kind of... it's like Lost Syndrome. You're just adding story and more murders and stuff just to make more games. And I don't believe for a second all this stuff was planned. Honestly, I don't think any of this stuff was planned beyond the first game. I think he just kind of kept stretching out a not that interesting plot. All right? It's a complicated plot, but it's not that interesting. I feel like this game's plot is actually interesting. I think it's a very... it makes me... I'm not going to spoil anything about the story, but it actually tells the tale of the monster and makes me almost understand him and what he's doing. And even though what he's doing is kind of horrible, I think that's the interesting thing. I kind of liken it to, I'm watching The Sopranos right now, right? I'm just getting The Sopranos. All the mob people in that show, they are monsters. They are like real life monsters that do horrible things to people of all sorts. But you see them and you see what lives they live, and you understand there's humans. There are humans inside these monsters, and sometimes you even sympathize with them or you feel bad for them, and you forget that they're monsters. That's what Hello Neighbor is. When I start learning about this story of the neighbor, I forget that he's a monster sometimes. And that makes him all the more interesting and almost believable, even though the game is like really silly and like the presentation and how things happen. Yeah. It still makes him a far more believable monster than most other games. And he's an interesting invention.
Yeah, so ultimately it does sound like the story and the character is compelling enough where you can look into what may be going on, but the gameplay of itself is tedious. Maybe someone can watch the story on YouTube or read a story summary or something.
That's kind of where I'm at. It's a game that had a good idea but man, did they botch the actual execution.
Gameplay.
And I'm sad to say I cannot recommend this game for anyone. Honestly, I will not recommend this game for anybody.
Just watch the story on YouTube, I guess,
that's
or
it.
something
That's
like
it.
that. That's disappointing.
Yeah, it's disappointing too. Maybe someday they'll fix it and make it playable, but for now, because I wanted someone to make a good version of the Five Nights at Freddy's idea. Honestly, I really did want someone to like take that concept that I hated and make a good game out of it, and that's what I thought this was going to be. But they kind of blew it in a different way.
Yeah, that's disappointing. Well, it does look like they're going to have a add-on to Hello Neighbor called Secret Neighbor, which is a multiplayer version of this game. So we'll see if they fix any of this game's problems before releasing that.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to the news, because there's a lot of uplifting and interesting stuff to talk about there. So, want to shift gears, JV?
Let's get hyped back up.
All right, news rundown, and here are your headlines. First off, as I mentioned, this was the week that Nintendo did their financial report, and we got a few little interesting tidbits from there, actually.
Yeah, so it looks like there have been 19.67 million Switch consoles sold, and 86.93 million pieces of software that have been sold as well.
Right.
That's a lot of software, and that's a lot of Switches.
And to put things in perspective, PlayStation has sold 80 million of their systems, but that's over the period since 2013. So 2, 4, 6, so that's 1/4 of the Sony system. I mean, look, Sony is like they're leading the market right now. So Nintendo sold 1/4 of that number in their first year, and it took them to 13, 14, 15, 16, 5 years to sell 80 million systems. So I think they're in a really good pace. Obviously, we don't necessarily expect Switches to sell 20 million every year. And it has been a little more than a year. It's been more like 15 months. But I mean, that's a very solid and respectable number comparing just using Sony as the benchmark, not like comparing, the systems and saying like, this company's better than the other, just giving people a frame of reference. That's all. And going into that, actually, some of the millions of the 80 million software sales that you mentioned there, they did release a list of all the games that sold over 1 million copies. And, actually, I thought we'd go down that list right now in case anyone's interested in, trying to guess. If you want to pause right here and try to guess what the top selling games of all time on Switch are, that's accumulated sales for the lifetime. A few of these numbers did surprise me. But I mean, I wasn't surprised by the number one title, Super Mario Odyssey at 11 million.
Yeah, and then Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 10 million, which Mario Kart is going to be an evergreen title for Nintendo. It's always going to sell really well. Then there's Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at 9 million, Splatoon at almost 7 million.
Now, I am a little surprised to see the next one on here. 1-2 Switch at 2.45 million units sold. That's a lot, considering it beat out games like ARMS and Xenoblade Chronicles. Yeah, ARMS at 2 million, Xenoblade Chronicles at 1.4 million, and Kirby Star Allies at 1.9 million.
Yeah, I feel like it's because 1-2 Switch was probably bundled with a lot of release date Switches and the fact that it didn't have that much competition early on.
Yeah,
I think
it was like one of the only like 2 games you could buy back then, or 3 or 4 games back at the first days of the system. And
a lot of the GameStop bundles forcibly added 1-2 Switch into the purchase price of a Switch. So yeah, the other games are Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze at 1.4 million. Nintendo Labo, both of them combined are 1.4 million as well. And Mario Tennis Aces, that's a much newer release at 1.38 million. I'm so glad to hear that, because that only came out a month ago. That's a large number, considering there were a couple balance issues that people had with it. And we were concerned that they wouldn't support this game as much as they do.
Yeah, I'm actually really I'm a little surprised to see that, and I'm glad to see it though.
Yeah, Tennis Aces is a great game, and we're going to talk about some updates that'll make it even better later.
Yes. Now this is something funny because I saw this story a couple of days ago, and I just kind of saved it in a folder to follow up in the future and talk about how this would pan out. But apparently, some progress came out in only a couple of days. And that's the story that, we always talk about how we see these surprising, like, we don't know why, but the Switch Nintendo stocks have taken a few dips in the past, right? And it's right after E3, investors are like, oh, not enough new games or whatever. And we just kind of said, like, you guys don't understand what the hell's going on.
You just don't understand.
I don't think they do. And I think that they just, they have a very, a set script of things that they say, if this happens, stocks should go up. And if this happens, stocks should go down. And they're not really able to understand how the Switch is changing the script, and the business model is very different than what they might be used to. So anyway, one particular hedge fund manager has been seeing these, and he actually sold short Nintendo stock, and that means basically it's complicated how they do it, but you put down money that you'll make profit if a stock goes down over time. And now I expected to say, like, all right, I'm going to look at this in 6 months and I'm going to see what happened to this guy. But no, he did this earlier this week. And then, as we mentioned, they just had their financial report this, past day. And already this guy who sold short Nintendo stock by $400 million, he invested $400 million into Nintendo losing money. And then right after the financials, their stock increased by 7%, which was a big hit on this. It was almost like saying, like, he just didn't made the bet, and the next day they're like, oh, sorry, the exact opposite of that happened, sir.
Wow, way to bet against Nintendo. That's not good.
No, it's not. Like I said, I think it's, if you were just someone looking at the numbers and not looking at anything around it, maybe it sounded like a good idea, but you have to know what, I don't think people understand what Nintendo's doing. I think that people dealing with these stocks just don't quite yet see. And I hope that maybe now they'll start to catch on and direct their investments in a positive way.
Yeah, maybe they could be more supportive of Nintendo in the future. Who knows?
I only bring this up because, as I mentioned once in a while, I was a financial reporter for a series of investment and banking magazines a long time ago, almost another life.
Another lifetime ago.
This is the kind of financial news I always kind of wanted an excuse to cover, but almost never came up. And I always had to write about, like, subprime mortgages and car financing. So it's always like, oh, if I worked there still and I got to talk about this, like, Nintendo hedge fund investment, I have an excuse to do it then, but well. Anyway.
It's just fun. It's just fun hearing about rich people betting against Nintendo and losing a ton of money.
Yeah. Still probably only a drop in a bucket in what this person's, he's a hedge fund manager, so it's not like his own personal money, but he is directing the investments of, like, probably people's retirement annuities and stuff like that.
Yeah, way to ruin it for a lot of people. Man.
All right. Next story, JV, you want to take?
So it looks like Taiko Drum Master will be digital download only, for the Western release, which is kind of strange because you would expect something like Taiko Drum Master to have a drum peripheral. Yeah,
it is going to have that in Japan, and you're probably, if you want the peripheral, you're going to need to import it from someplace like PlayAsia or something like that. I have seen videos of some people who have adapted the Donkey Konga drums to work with it, but I'm not sure if you can, because I know Taiko drums, they usually had, like, you could hit the center or you could tap the edges and it'd be two different inputs depending on where. I didn't know if the bongos had two different inputs for each one.
Well, it's just one drum and you either hit the center or the rim.
Right.
So I'm assuming the rim and the center inputs are going to be one or the other.
That makes sense. That's true.
And it does look like the digital version will use the motion controls of your Joy-Con, so that might be a way to replicate hitting the drums.
Yeah, I think that's what they're probably going to expect us to just rely on just using the Joy-Cons as our taiko drum, but I mean, that's really... All right, I'll keep an open mind. I'll see if it still captures that fun essence of using the taiko drum. And honestly, I probably don't need another big plastic peripheral in my life. But here's what I want to issue a challenge to the world. Invent a Labo adjustment for this.
Oh, yes, that would be perfect.
I mean, it seems like this is screaming for the fan community to fill a need that's, in a way that might be easier for people or make people, just tie in this whole Labo thing to it and make it solve any problem that we have.
Yeah. Labo solves everything.
That's it. Oh, so yeah, if anyone has been interested, we have pre-orders are already available for the Switch Online service subscriptions.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can right now go on there and you can order your 12-month subscription for $20 or a 3-month subscription for $8. I guess that way if you get it now and maybe you could punch in the code, you won't have to worry about there being any interruption in case the comes and you didn't think about it and you're like, oh, I can't get online with my favorite games because I forgot to, put this code in already.
It might allow you to preemptively just not worry about it anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Right. Not till another year. Also, someone noticed something pretty interesting. Now, I know a lot of people have always been curious how free-to-play games are going to be handled. It's been at least assumed that you'll need the online service from Nintendo in order to play some of these games like Fortnite or Paladins, for that matter.
Paladins.
Yeah. But someone actually made note, this is on Resetera, the forums, I checked this out. There is a fine print on most games that have online connectivity. From the full launch of the Nintendo Switch Online membership service in 2018, online play requires a paid membership. That fine print is on most online capable games. But the free-to-play games like Paladins, Fortnite, Galaxy, they do not have this on there. So that leads us to conclude that they will still be able to play on even without Nintendo service. They might probably have their own little thing set up to bypass it and don't require it. So it's something that's interesting to note. It might change. Maybe this is still wrong, but I think that's what people think this
can
is.
Expect.
Yeah, I think that's what it would make sense that Nintendo wouldn't just, preclude free-to-play online games from existing on their system if people don't want to pay for Nintendo's online service.
Right. That makes total sense. I'm glad that they're doing this, at least.
Yeah, it's a positive note.
So it looks like we're getting a new Labo Toy-Con kit. So Labo Toy-Con 3 is a vehicle kit, which even includes some online or some co-op features.
Yeah, did you watch this trailer for it yet?
I did not. What's up with that?
All right, so you build the different controllers. So there's the big steering wheel with a pedal to control this Jeep or this like dune buggy he had. He could then go into like a little plane or like a flying mode, and that would be a different joystick, like a jet fighter kind of like controller.
Cool.
He then had this weird, crazy knobby thing that controlled the submarine by letting you twist these two things that changed where your fins or your propellers were aimed. But one of the things I saw and was that his dad shows up and he grabs one of the other controllers, and while the kid's driving like the dune buggy, the dad's controlling some like gun turret on the back of it. And,
oh, nice.
Yeah, and it was only flashed on there for a second, but they definitely tried to express that there's a multiplayer aspect to this.
Right, and that is really cool. There wasn't any real multiplayer elements to the previous Labo experiences, outside of maybe the robot one, but you would need your own separate Labo kit for that.
Yeah.
The fact that this is built more for those co-op gameplay features is something that makes this vehicle kit unique compared to the other one.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. I would like to see if these games have some actual game to them beyond just like, hey, here's a tech demo to show off the thing that you just built. Something that might be worth investing a little time into as a game and in a long term. But he was doing a lot of different things in here. So that's pretty promising looking, and just having fun, two players in could always be fun. But yeah, I'm interested to see what that. Anyway, the system, this Toy-Con is going to cost $70 for this kit.
Right, and it does look like it has more varied gameplay elements to it.
Yeah,
than
it does
even
have
the robot kit.
I do like it though. It does look like it's a very exploratory, free, like a sandbox kind of game.
Yeah, kind of. Now, on more Labo news, it looks like there's going to be a Nintendo Labo spray that lets you coat your Labo kits, or your built Labo kits, and makes it a bit more durable for continued use.
Yeah, this is a little product that some company in Japan is selling there. It's like a sealant. It almost looks like it's just a thing to keep the oil from your hands or grease and things like that from mucking up and wearing out your cardboard over time. So it kind of just like water gives it a little coat, a little sheen that helps it last a little longer. So that's pretty nice, because that's one thing, especially if you stick these things away or if you use them a lot. I'm sure that they will get worn out just from the natural, humans are greasy, damp things.
Humans, why you gotta be so greasy? So it looks like Hori is releasing a D-pad specific Joy-Con?
Yeah, just to the left side. Instead of having the 4 buttons on the left Joy-Con, these ones have an actual classic NES D-pad on them.
Yeah, and this is definitely preferable for some games out there. And it's interesting that the Hori company can release official Joy-Con with some pretty interesting design on them. One of them has Zelda Breath of the Wild artwork, and the other one has Super Mario artwork, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have heard some reports that these things drain batteries more than average, so I have to substantiate those a little more, and if it's an issue that they can resolve. But I think it's worth looking into, and I want to see if there's any other things. But I could see these being handy if people like playing, let's say, a fighting game on there. I find a D-pad a lot easier to press, inputs with than the 4 separate buttons.
Right. I can see that.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, there's a lot of updates. I'm just going to run through a couple of them here. Shantae, half genie hero, she got the new Jammies mode, which is basically, she always has these new costumes and new stages that let her use these. Basically, imagine if every time Kirby got a new power, or a new hat or whatever, they made a whole set of stages designed to fully optimize the powers he has from that new thing. And that's what this is. So she has this new Jammies where she shoots sheep, and she has pillow fight attacks, and
it's pretty cool. Yeah, Shantae is actually quite popular, surprisingly popular, so I'm glad Shantae is getting more support like that.
And they also have a crossover with Blaster Master, and the other mode is she becomes Sophia the Third, the shooting tank from that game, and another mode with using her new abilities there.
It's very silly.
South Park, the Fractured But Whole DLC, Bring the Crunch is coming out. Oh, that is out, and that's a very bloody horror themed one. Seems like it's out a little early since we're not quite into Halloween season yet.
Yep, it's a little early.
Yeah.
So look, we're getting Mario Tennis Aces, a really big update that lets you retry missions without going through the full animation, which is great. There's also it's also very, very heavy on the balance changes. So it includes balancing improvements for Bowser, Toad, Wario, and Waluigi. And there's a lot of energy consumption that's been changed and tweaked for specific moves in the game. Honestly, this is a huge deal, and I confirmed with the Discord community who plays Mario Tennis Aces very often, and they said that all of these updates to the balancing and the tweaks and the base mechanics really improved the online multiplayer experience. So if you picked up Tennis Aces and you were frustrated at all the trick shot abusers and the Bowser Juniors out there, a lot of these balancing changes improve that experience, and a lot more characters are viable now. So
awesome.
I implore you guys to check that out. Yeah, that one's a big deal.
Fortnite?
So Fortnite version 5.1 It just came out, and there's a new game mode and new guided missile weapons that seem to be kind of powerful.
I think it used to exist before it came out on Switch, and yeah, it did cause a little bit of an uproar because you could guide it through obstacles, and it could, really seek out opponents very easily. So they took it away, and now it's back, and supposedly they've toned back its power so that it's not so OP.
Yeah, and we'll see how the meta of that game revolves based on this weird weapon change. So
yeah, and they also have that new mode that is called, what is it called? Fly Explosives, where basically they load the stage up with jetpacks and only explosive weapons like rockets and grenades, and it's pretty high flying explosive craziness.
It looks super silly.
Yeah, it sounds pretty crazy. It could definitely be fun.
Yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2 version 1.51. Of course, we got a new rare blade and some new quests that have some, depending on what chapters you're up to and what characters you have. So even more to do in that game. Though this is the kind of thing that I think our community pulse is really all about. So I'm going to talk about this more when we get to that.
Yep, and it does look like they announced a new Super Mario Odyssey costume, which has a Harriet hat and suit.
Yeah, that's that weird, the girl Brutal. Basically, he now has
the girl Brutal.
Yeah, he now has the outfit of the girl Brutal.
Very cool.
All right, so down the pipe, games that have just been given release dates or have just been announced to be coming sometime in the future. World of Horror. This is pretty interesting. It is a really old school graphics, like 1-bit black and white art, but it is a game. Kind of a visual novel. I think there's some turn-based battling in it too, but it's like a really disturbing horror game where it's basically some creatures or aliens have taken over the city in Japan, and now they're terrorizing people, and you have to either find your way to escape, or it has kind of a combination of RPG and choose your own adventure elements with different characters, and you have to figure out how to survive here. And I think it's supposed to be a little roguelike-ish, where like every time you play it, different random things might happen to you. All I know is the trailer shows someone putting a needle towards their eyeball, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to look at this anymore.
I'm done.
Got it. I get it. You're trying to disturb me. Got it.
Nope.
Undertale's Collector's Edition is announced to be coming September in Japan. We'll see if it comes to America. I just got a code for this one. 2064 Read Only Memories has a release date of August 24th, but I will have my review of that in 2 weeks' time when the embargo is up, so I'll be able to actually review a game before it comes out for once in a blue moon.
There you go.
Fitness Boxing is coming winter. This is a game, all we have is the title, and that it's going to kind of be along the lines of like a Wii Fit type game, where you're going to use your Wiimotes, your Joy-Cons, and it's going to be different exercise programs that emulate boxing. I would like to see if they actually put some sort of gameplay into it, make it feel like you have a character that's growing and advancing and maybe able to fight. Anyway, that's coming winter. European Conqueror X coming out sometime this year. I think there was another game in this series, World Conqueror X or something like that I saw before.
Yeah. So you're paring it down, so not maybe the world, just Europe. Let's just conquer Europe.
Planet Alpha is coming September 4th. It reminds me of that Out of This World game. It's a very high-speed platformer game where just everything's going crazy behind you. It looks like there's an alien invasion going on in the background that you're just trying to run from and dodge and survive, but there's some puzzle platform elements. And I think you find out you have the ability to like alter the world behind you, like rotating stuff. And anyway, pretty cool graphic style. And Digimon Survive has been confirmed for the West in 2019. And they also just released a new trailer for it that just it's full of like emotional music and really somber vibe. It's really trying to press the personal feelings of this game. Like, they're really different than the Digimon.
Well, they've really been going in that direction for the franchise as a whole. There are a lot of moments like this in the new Digimon Tri anime. So I feel like this more adult emotional direction is going to be part of this new Digimon identity.
Which is so emo.
I know.
Lego Harry Potter collection is also coming this winter. JV, why don't you tell us what the new releases are for this week?
All right, there are going to be a lot of releases starting today, August 2nd. We are getting Battle Supremacy, Ayakashi Koi Gikyoku, Forbidden Romance with Mysterious Spirit, Pick-a-Pix Deluxe, Classic Puzzles 8, Picross S2, Kensho, Salt and Sanctuary, ACA Neo Geo Prehistoric Isle 2, Johnny Turbo's Arcade Shootout, Not a Hero Super Snazzy Edition, Road to Valhalla, 1979 Revolution Black Friday, Cycle 28, Iconoclasts, Ikimu, Splinters of the Dark Shard, Crush Your Enemies, Guns, Gore, and Cannoli 2, and Flat Heroes. So that's all August 2nd. On August 3rd, we are getting The Inner World and The Last Wind Monk. The Inner World, The Last Wind Monk. On August 6th, we are getting Loot Monkey Bling Palace. And on August 7th, we are getting Super Blackjack Battle 2 Turbo Edition, The Card Warriors. That's interesting because I love Blackjack. I'm going to look into that one. Okay. We're getting Minecraft Story Mode Season 2, the Telltale series. We are getting In Between, Overcooked 2, Flipping Death, Dead Cells, and Slamland.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, JV, for that. All right, let's close out the show with some Community Pulse and our System Switch. All right, Community Pulse. This week, I asked you, the listeners, what are your opinions regarding updates for games? How long do you want to see them updated? Or would you rather they just give you all that content when the game came out so you could enjoy it all at the, up front? And if you do like games being constantly updated, how long do you want them to go on for? Do you think they should cut off after a certain point and just save that content for a new game, or just keep it coming as long as you can, guys?
Yeah.
Kick us off, JV, with one of our responses.
So I'm going to start with Calvin Connor. He says, trickle it in, baby. Gives me a reason to go back and keep playing. I was underwhelmed that all of Mario Kart 8, except the new stuff, was all available day one. Less the parts. I enjoy the challenge of unlocking everything. See Smash Brothers. You get everything in one package, but the content trickles in and gives you a sense of reward and investment, which can keep you playing. So I think in this sense, he thought that he was talking about having all the content unlocked at once, instead of it being something you gradually earn. So that's not quite what we're asking, is it?
But that's kind of interesting, though. It does have a similar feel, right? Let's say you got Super Smash Brothers, right? Or one of the previous ones that you had to actually unlock everything. That took a lot of time for some people. And that would actually bring out the content. Like, you wouldn't get a new character or you wouldn't unlock every character for several months. I mean, now we don't have to worry about unlocking things so much, but things do come at this trickle down kind of way. So it almost has a similar effect. That's interesting because it's interesting because I never actually put those two thoughts together like that. So even if he wasn't necessarily answering it the same way I was expecting, that's a decent comparison. That it's another way to draw out that enjoyment of a game and that content and make it feel like fresh and feel like more, rather than making me work for it, though. They're just going to kind of dole it out drop by drop. All right.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting. So Rick Caceres, he said, I love that they keep updating games. It shows commitment to the product. I always like to play new releases so I don't get to see the new content, but it's good for gamers that don't get to buy many games or pick it up on sale. So that is a good point. Having continuous updates adds more value to a game you already have. So if someone doesn't have as big of a budget to pick up all the new games coming out. Getting updates for games they already have is a great cost saver, and gives you more content for less money.
Okay, all right. Someone who gives an opinion of the opposite direction here, Randy Beekler, says, cop-out answer, but depends on the genre. RPGs, I think, should be one and done. I love Xenoblade 2, but about 325 hours into my first playthrough, then they add New Game Plus with new blades, which are only available in New Game, in the New Game Plus mode I'll add. I scarcely see the need for a New Game Plus for a game of that size. Anywho, I think Odyssey, Mario Kart 8, Smash Brothers are all great examples of trickle-out content. It's an awesome way to get the game back into the zeitgeist. That is true as well. But yes, I totally feel this about a game like Xenoblade 2, right? They trickled out this content or these new things, but I will never touch that content because I spent hundreds of hours on that game already. It's been a long time, and there's still so much content to get to in this game. And I really don't like that they made it part of that. Maybe if they made the new blades available after you beat the game, and then like while you're playing in the end game world, you can access them. But the fact that I can only get them when I like restart my game file and restart the story, that just feels like a real missed opportunity. And I will never see that, because I still want to see all the backstories to all the blades, because all the blades they do have their own missions with their own stories I have to unlock, and who knows when I'll ever get around to that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say it might be a single answer, a single example of this, but I really am annoyed with how they added the content in Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Right.
It's kind of frustrating to me.
For me, I'm a bit more okay with it, since with New Game Plus, the blade affinity and a certain amount of content and progress that you made in the original game transfer over. So I'm a bit more okay with the new blades being accessible in a New Game Plus, as opposed to just having to completely play a blank slate again. That's fine, but I agree that RPGs probably don't necessarily need this trickle-down content.
It's almost a relief, like I said, that they aren't releasing more content for Octopath. That I can play this game at my leisure.
And just be done with it.
Be done with it, and then maybe start looking forward to a sequel.
So, Christopher Urig said, I love the slow release over time. It gives me reasons to return to games that I may have forgotten about or otherwise ignored for a period of time. That's a good call. You might have been playing a game and enjoyed it, but you might have forgotten about it or dropped it for a new game that's coming out. And an update to that previous game might just remind you of why you loved the game in the first place and might bring you back.
And let's close this one out with someone from the Twitter. Shy Guy wrote to us, Day one is preferred, but with the development process being more widely known, I understand it's an unrealistic expectation, especially as games grow in size and complexity. I'll admit the games as a service idea does add excitement.
I can see that.
Sometimes the content is made after the game's released and they can add it over time, but sometimes it's like
held back.
Yeah, sometimes like, we made this specifically to be released. And it's not bad because they're not actually charging us for these new little things, but it's like we just held it back because we want to add this over time and give people, like some of the other listeners wrote, a reason to get it back in the zeitgeist, to get people to think about this game again that might have had no reason to be mentioned on, a news site or have us announce a certain update if they didn't have this little thing in their back pocket to drop.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. System Switch. JV and I each pick a game that is not on the Switch, but something that we would like to see. I'll just say that this week I'm picking a game because I've been making a little bit of a habit. I'm checking the Steam library more often for what's new and upcoming on that platform, because a lot of really good games have been finding their way over to the Switch. So I'm like, all right, let me stay ahead of the curve by checking and scouting this thing out on my own. And I did see one thing. I've mentioned a bunch of chess games in one of my previous system switches, but I did see one thing because I'm so far been a little disappointed with the the chess game that's on the Switch right now. That
Chess Ultra?
Chess Ultra, yeah. I actually got to play it a couple times, and I did have a problem with just the visuals. Like, it was kind of not easy to make out pieces on a couple of the stages we were trying at. But I digress. Chessaria. This is a game that was, it came out not too long ago, maybe like a couple months ago. But this is a actual story-driven, like, fantasy adventure game where the battles play out with chess setups. It's almost like a chess puzzle game, but they throw in different, like, locations with obstacles on the maps, different setups of the units, and they have all those fantastic over the top animations for everything that the characters do. So it's just the chess mechanics put into this really beautiful setting with lots of, great animations and an actual RPG-like storyline to give you that motivation to go throughout the stages. So I just felt like throwing that one out here for this week. JV, what's your pick?
So, inspired by the game we mostly discussed this episode, my system switch is Overwatch.
I'm actually be surprised that if that hasn't been one of your picks before. I'm gonna have to look in the archives and see if we've done
it might have been, but I feel like it's most relevant today because whenever I play Paladins, I do like it as a game and it's totally fun. But there have been some moments when I'm like, I really wish I could just play Overwatch on this Switch. There's a degree of polish in Overwatch that I just miss whenever I play Paladins. So that just goes to show how much I like that game.
All right, very cool, very cool. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed our show, as always.
Once again, just a quick notice, if you can, leave us podcast reviews on iTunes, or Apple Podcast, or Stitcher, wherever. And until next time,
switch it up! Thanks for listening. You can support the SwitchCast by visiting us at patreon.com/theswitchcast and join the review crew by rating us and subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Also, check out our Discord chat where we have an enthusiastic bunch of Switch fans in a family-friendly environment. Also, join our Facebook group for daily discussion and quite a bit of activity towards the Switch itself.
You can also contact us directly via email at kc@theswitchcast.com and jv@theswitchcast.com. Talk to us on Twitter @theswitchcast.
Thank you, HeatleyBros, for the theme music. And check us out on our website at theswitchcast.com, where we will post all relevant links and show notes.
Promotional considerations provided by publishers in the form of review copies of games. I spent so much time using the radar, the chaining with the Poké Radar in order to get the shinies I wanted. There was always that, there's always a way to get shinies more likely in Pokemon games, but they're usually incredibly stressful, really obscure, and just take hours and hours of work. And I put in a lot of time to get these shinies that I just collect and I didn't ever use. It's such a shame.
Well, it's still an experience that you can reminisce about now, and you have that Pokemon. So cool.
I kind of regret it.
Oh,
I have to admit, it's kind of a waste of my time and life to have done.
Well, I'm still proud of you, Casey.
Thank you, Dad.